Alright, here's what I'm up to so far in getting this suspension on this lined out. And as you can see, I got much of it re-engineered. Of course, like I said before, this is all based on a previous version that I made. So I didn't have to recreate the actual mesh. I'm just essentially recreating or re-engineering how the constraints work, and the constraints control the suspension, I guess you could say. Although some of the suspension itself, the geometry of the suspension is being held in place with these control arms, and of course the solid axles. But this is what it looks like right now. Go ahead and click play. It'll have to go through it once. But essentially that's working pretty much how I want it. Of course, depending on whatever terrain I have this rolling over, it's going to require different settings on the springs. Of course, let me go back to the beginning here. Shift D, and then put this over here. Now I have one in the front right and one in the rear left. Now of course it's sliding off of everything, which that's partially because it's rolling off, because the wheels right now are completely free. They're free to rotate however physics dictates, because it's essentially just an axle with a bearing at this point. There's no motors, no brakes, nothing like that. But I wish I could get rid of that cough completely. It always bothers me in the mornings. Now I could actually add a motor to it, which would essentially, I'm going to do it on the rear first. Alright, and essentially I have my axles already in position, so I'm just going to duplicate those and then turn those into motors. Alright, so I'm going to, this is the rear left. I'm going to press Shift D, enter. Now the thing is with the motor constraint, the motor rotates it along the x-axis, which right now the x-axis is pointing down. So I need to rotate that on the y-axis to get it oriented right. Rotate Y 90. Alright. And then change this one to a motor. And then I'm going to rename this, because you have to rename them when you start getting complicated like this. Otherwise, you'll get way confused. Alright. And I'll set that up here in a minute. Now let's do the motor constraint for this one, which that's the axle rear right. Alright. Shift D to duplicate, rotate on the y-axis by 90, rename it. Motor constraint. And then set this from hinge to motor. Alright, now go ahead and do the front ones the same way. Axle front left, this one right here, Shift D, enter, rotate Y 90, and then rename it. Motor, and then get this last part off of it, and then change this to motor. Alright, axle front right, which is over here, Shift D, enter, rotate Y 90, enter, rename it. Motor, get rid of the last little bit, and then change this to motor. Now, we will never use, for something like this, we will not use linear, it will always be angular. So turn the angular on, and right now I'm going to set this to 0, which basically it's basically just turning on the brakes. And I'm going to clamp down the brakes quite a bit. I'm going to set this to 5,000 and then go to the rest of the motor constraints and do the same thing. Angular 0, 5,000, angular 0, 5,000, angular 0, 5,000. And just in case you're curious, I do talk to myself pretty much like this whenever I'm doing, this little commentary right here. I don't say that. I'm not that crazy. Alright, so now, essentially, all these motor constraints are in the same exact position as the axles. And the axles are essentially holding the wheels in place in relation to the, pardon me, let me rephrase this. The axle constraint is holding the wheels in place in relationship to the actual axle. And then, because the motor constraints are in the same exact position, it's essentially rotating along the rotation of the axle. And each axle motor right now is set to 0 velocity, but 5,000 on the max impulse, which is basically the strength of the setting. So essentially right now the brakes are on. So now if I was to press play, obviously going to click save first. It should not roll off quite as easy. It slid off. Although that doesn't look quite right. It's kind of, yeah. I probably need to adjust the friction on these. 5 is kind of low for tires. I'm going to set this to 50. Set this one to 50. Set this one to 50. Set that one to 50. And it's just going to slip off apparently. Let me see what type of is this set to, oh, this is why. I don't know why I didn't notice this. It's set to convex hull. It needs to be set on cylinder. Now this will make it so much more stable, because with it set to convex hull, it's kind of like wrapping shrink wrap around it, and the high points are what's touching the surfaces of like the floor or whatever. But with it set to cylinder, essentially it's a perfectly round cylindrical object, and it's easier for Blender to calculate when it's set to cylinder. So it should be more predictable, or at least I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. Still kind of doing it well, you can see right now I got all this cache in here. Let me try to get rid of this cache and see if it changes anything. Set this to 20, set this to 50, and now try it. There we go. It's acting a little bit better, but it's still not quite the way I want it, and I've lost some of my sponginess. I'm trying to figure out what is causing that. Alright, now, see, I have my, let me turn so I can actually see it. This constraint, I have all the angulars free, so it should be able to rotate freely on all the angles. And the x-axis is set to 0, which I don't think I actually need that. I'm just going to turn that off for now, see if that makes any difference. Yeah, that was my issue. Now it works like I was expecting it to, although it's still kind of sliding off, like it doesn't have enough traction. But yeah, that's working much better. Now let me press pause here, go back to the beginning. Since I have this somewhere how I like it, I'm going to go ahead and click save, and then size, shift, Z, 10, enter, control A, scale. Alright, now let's see. Let's go to these motor constraints and let's give it a little bit of velocity. I'm just going to put this on 1. It's going to be extremely slow, but this is just to get it moving, just so we can have an idea of whether or not we're going the right direction. It's kind of hard to remember because it depending on the orientation, whether the x-axis is pointing this way or pointing that way, will control whether or not it's a positive or negative number here to go this direction or that direction. Alright, now that's negative is backwards. Let me set this to, set this to 500. Whoops. And go to the cache setting, set this to 500. Alright, now I know I need to take all of these, because I want a positive number obviously to be forward, because it will be easier to keep track of it in your head, or at least it will be in my head. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab each one of these constraints and I'm going to rotate it on the z-axis by 180 degrees. That way the x-axis is pointing this direction instead of this direction, or basically it's just gonna flip the directions around. I'm probably not explaining it very well. I'm half asleep still. Alright, rotate Z 180. Rotate Z 180. Rotate Z 180. Rotate Z 180. Alright, so now if it worked correctly, it should want to roll forward. Alright, so now let's do this. I'm going to get rid of these blocks. Alright, and click play. And you can see it start creeping forward. Now, what I'm going to do now is select this camera, and I'm going to, let me make sure my camera is active or not hidden. Where is my camera? Oh, duh, it's right in the middle. Alright, so now I'm going to just, with the camera selected, I'm going to select that and press Control P. Now this camera will follow the vehicle. Alright, now let's change this a little bit. Let's go to these motors and let's make it 5 times faster and 5 times more torque. Make it the same way on the rest of them. Whoops, not 5,000. That would be extremely fast and would probably break the physics engine. And let me double check them. Alright, let's see what that looks like. Quite a bit faster, and it's getting ready to roll off the edge. Of course, there's probably a better way to parent this camera, which I'm going to do it a little bit different way. Alt P, clear parent, keep transformation. Alright, now since I have the camera selected, I'm going to go to the constraints and copy location and choose offset. And then I'm going to choose that, and let me select the camera and lower it, get it back in frame. Let's see, come back out a little bit on the Y. Alright, now it's going to follow or keep the location, but it's not going to rotate with it. So you can see the movement of it a little bit better because the camera is only copying the location and not the rotation also. Alright, now let's I have this pretty much set up good. I'm going to save that. Alright, now let's do something silly. Let's increase the speed by 5 again, and let's give it 4 times as much torque. Alright, 25, 100,000, 25, 100, 25. Now I'm thinking this is probably gonna really squat down on the rear end as it accelerates, or it may even pull the front wheels up. It's just kind of, it's kind of broken. I don't know what's going on there. That's kind of weird. Do I have one of them off? Is the, see, 50, 50, 50, 50. Let me bump this down to 1. Let me see. Huh, that's weird. I'm not sure what's going on with that at this point. Let me change this to box. I think it's just too fast. That's the only thing I can think of at this point. Let me set this to 15. Of course, that doesn't seem all that fast. Because I think that's... I don't know what relationship this has, but I think that's like 15 frames per... No, that wouldn't be it. I don't know, maybe that's 15 rotations per second. I'm not 100% sure. I should probably actually run some tests at some point to determine that. A little unstable for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on with that. It seems a little weird to me. We got it leaning around the corners. Don't know why it's wanting to lean. I clearly have something out of balance, and the speed is exaggerating it. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to this spring constraint and let's see, angular. Let me add some dampening. Let me set this to, let's say, let me do it this way. Let me stiffness. See, that's kind of heavy, so probably I'm gonna start with 1000. And then do the same thing for this one. This is the only thing I can think of at the moment that could be causing this. I'm probably going to have to add some dampening to it. Yeah, that didn't quite work. Alright, now let me up this to 10,000. This is pretty much how I work when I do this stuff. I kind of fiddle around with it till I start to understand the process. Well, let me turn this dampening up to, I'm just going to turn it up to something 25,000. 25,000 and 25,000. Go to this one. 25,000. 25,000 and 25,000. Huh. Maybe it's just... let's see. I need to... That's not what I meant to do. I don't know what's going on with this camera. me think about this for a minute. It's obviously leaning too far to the right or left. I have the y-axis right here on the... That is probably what's causing that. Probably... Let's limit this to 10 degrees and see what happens. This will help me understand whether I'm on track. Not so much as a solution, but just to see whether or not that is somewhere along the lines of where the problem actually exists. Now, how did my camera get way up there? That's weird. Yeah, I'm definitely on the right track with that. Alright, so now, since I know I'm on the right track, and I know which constraint is causing the issue, and vaguely what's causing it, what I need to do is significantly bump up this stiffness right here. I'm going to set this to let me think here, 250,000. 250,000. Let me see what this does. Yeah, that looks much better, although it's still having a little bit of issues. Is this that's not even a rigid body, is it? No. It's probably a good thing it's not. It'd be so top heavy. Let me turn off these two, and then bump this up. I'm just going to go up by 10. I'm making big changes just so I can see the difference. Now the dampening probably has to go up too. So I'm going to go up by 10 on that as well. Alright, let's see what that does. Let me make sure my cache is being replaced. Now that looked much better. One test to see if it's actually doing better. Add mesh, and I'm going to choose a cylinder. Alright, grab, bring it out here, rotate Y90, top side view, size X 50, Control A, scale, rigid body, passive, make it wider, size X 4, enter, Control A, scale, make this a convex hole is fine, and grab it, stick it in this middle. 3. Okay. Grab Z. Alright, top side view. Shift D, Y, repeat, 0. Yeah, see, now that's working so much better. Way, way better. Alright, now, let me slow this down a little bit so we can see it better. Motor, let me set this to half the speed as before. Whoops, not 75, 0.5. Alright, now let me try this. Go back to here, set the speed back up to 3 like I had it before, and see what happens. Now that kind of broke. Okay, I see what happened. Turn this up to 20 and then 50. Yeah, there we go. I think that's pretty much how, or it's getting really, really close to how it needs to be. Alright, file, save, and I guess that's it for today. But you can see how complicated it can be because I can't quite articulate exactly why I'm making certain changes, because really a lot of it is just guesswork. And whenever it comes to something acting wonky, you just have to track it down, and it gets kind of complicated, and you can't really carry it over to another vehicle, I guess you could say. The same process has to be redone. It's so finicky that there's no one way fits all is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, I guess that's it. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Later, people. Alright, one more thing. I just want to do this. Alt H to bring back the body. And then put this in Eevee. And we'll see what this looks like in Eevee. Yeah, let me do this a little bit different. Alright, let me add a sun, add light, sun, grab, rotate, 7, rotate, and then go here to set this to 0.05, and now put this in that view. But where's my sun at? Take this, bump it up 5, and you gotta do something about this floor, make it a little bit less shiny. I'm not real good at Eevee. essentially. That's not that bad for real time rendering. And let me where my camera at? Alright. Guess that's it. Later, people.